All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us for the Storytelling for Advocacy Fundraising virtual information session. We'll go ahead and get started. Just a reminder for everyone on today's call, we will be recording this session and we'll be sending a copy of both the presentation and the recording out to any folks registered on today's call. So before I begin, real quick, my name is Sara Omari, and I am the Grants and Strategy Manager with IEHP Foundation. So I will be your point of contact if you have any follow-up questions or any comments or feedback for this grant opportunity. This grant opportunity is also being offered in partnership with Kristen Caloca, and I believe she's joining us on the webinar, and I'll have her say a couple words about herself.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Hi, thanks, Sarah. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited for this cohort. I am just, I'm just pumped. I'm super excited to do it. If you had the chance to join us in May at the Vibrant Health Forum that the foundation hosted, that was just a little snapshot of what is to come. We're going to go into a lot more detail, but really looking forward to that. I am finding, I work with nonprofits in a consulting capacity, and what I am finding, and I think what the foundation is hearing as well, is that given all of the funding challenges in the landscape, storytelling has never been more important. Whether you're doing advocacy to try to restore or retain funding that might be from a government source, or looking to attract or engage, re-engage donors. Stories are going to be the key way that you can help achieve those goals. And so there's been no better time. I know there's a lot of urgency to do this now. And what you'll start learning with us when we start in January, you'll be able to put into practice right away. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm going to be spending the end of this year getting ready for it so that we can hit the ground running in January. Is there anything you think I should add, or?
No, I think that's perfect. I really appreciate that, Kristen. And as you can see, we have a few more details about her background and experience here on the screen, but this cohort will be in nothing but good hands with Kristen. So just a quick overview of what we'll be covering in the next hour. We will be going through these slides fairly quickly. There's a lot of information to cover, but we'll be touching base on a little bit more about IEHP Foundation, our mission, vision, values, and strategies, and how this grant aligns with that. We'll be going over additional details and specifics around this particular grant opportunity for the Storytelling for Fundraising and Advocacy Cohort to take place in winter of 2026. We'll also touch upon a little bit how to navigate our grants management portal. And if there's additional time permitting, I'll go ahead and answer some questions and answers live. Again, just a reminder, this grant opportunity or this grant information session recording will be available on our website within 3 business days, and you'll get that follow-up email with additional details. Throughout this information session, I'm also joined on the call with a couple of my great coworkers here at IEHP Foundation. So if you have questions, feel free to type them in the Q&A portion of the webinar, and they'll be responding to those live. But we will also follow up with any questions we're unable to get to during this information session. And any questions that are answered will be included in that follow-up email, so everyone has a copy of those responses. If you have any additional questions, you can always reach me at the grants@ihpfoundation.org email. Typically try to respond right away, but do allow up to 3 business days to receive a response. So a little bit about IEHP Foundation. I see a lot of familiar names on this call, but for those who aren't as familiar with IEHP Foundation, we were formed back in 2021 from IEHP, and why we are a separate entity, we are working collectively to advance vibrant health in the Inland Empire. And in just a second, I'll talk about what we mean by vibrant health. So easiest way to describe this is IEHP, the Inland Empire Health Plan side, is focused on IEHP members. They are the health plan focused within the clinic setting. IEHP Foundation was really formed to advance vibrant health outside the clinic. So really focusing on those social drivers of health and extending beyond just IEHP team members to serve the whole community, Riverside and San Bernardino counties at large. So we here at the foundation are really aiming to advance vibrant health in the Inland Empire. So our mission is to inspire and ignite the health of the Inland Empire. We're focusing on residents in San Bernardino and Riverside counties, making sure that they have access to and are experiencing everything that leads to a fulfilling life, whether that's physical, mental, and overall well-being. So our goal is to work with our partners to advance positive health outcomes across the region. And so we do this in particular by leading our 2025 strategic plan. And so in particular, we're investing in the strength and capacity of local CBOs, coalitions, and their leaders. So focusing both at the organizational level and the leadership level, the individual leaders, you'll see that in this grant opportunity, to address those social drivers of health that do help advance both mental and physical health outcomes across the Inland Empire. Given our limited resources and capacity, we are focusing on those organizations that are serving families with children in low-income communities experiencing the poorest health outcomes. And there will be some additional slides diving deeper into what our priority or focus areas are. And so in particular, we are looking to support those organizations that are helping our Inland Empire residents either build healthy neighborhoods through addressing basic needs, meaningful work and wealth, or humane housing, or helping residents cultivate healthy living, either by increasing their healthy behaviors or decreasing risky behaviors. And again, I'll go over each of these later on in the slide deck. And you might hear us refer to folks as champions for vibrant health. And so all of our community partners, whether we collaborate with them, engage in them, they come to one of our trainings, engage in one of our grant opportunities, or attend one of our events, are considered our champions for vibrant health. So everyone here on this call, you're considered part of our Champions for Vibrant Health network. So you may hear us use some of that language. For those that receive the grant, they are funded champions. So switching gears and focusing on this specific grant opportunity, diving a little bit into more detail, as Kristen shared, this is really a response to participant feedback from a Vibrant Health Forum that we held back in May of 2025. Kristen did a great job leading that, focusing on storytelling for impact. We definitely heard from our partners. They wanted more, they wanted to go deeper, they wanted some more hands-on support. And so we listened and we responded with this cohort opportunity. So in whole, this opportunity is an 8-course storytelling training series intended to equip leaders. We're going to be selecting 20 Inland Empire nonprofits. And those leaders are going to be equipped with the tools and knowledge to build a storytelling culture at their organization, with the ultimate goal that that storytelling culture helps inspire action through advocacy and funding. So more specifically, our goals and objectives with this opportunity, being that is a cohort model, we want to make sure that the leaders selected for this opportunity have a chance to connect with peers in similar roles, really cultivating that trusted network and peer collaboration, that they learn and apply the storytelling frameworks for advocacy and fundraising within their organization. They're integrating trauma-informed and ethical storytelling practices that honor the dignity of those whose stories they're sharing, that they learn how to adapt stories to multiple audiences. So again, tie anywhere from a policymaker to a donor. These leaders are feeling confident that they know how to adapt those stories. And they're also learning the tools and skills to build a sustainable storytelling culture within their organization that even extends beyond the cohort. So you may have seen in the schedule of classes, there was some homework assignments called out. I really want to, we use the word homework, but they really are practical assignments. So these are things, these are tools, these are pieces and documents that you are able to apply in your day-to-day role to help create that sustainable storytelling culture. So if you look deeper at the assignments, you'll see it's an outline of a story-based appeal. So these are very tangible, practical assignments that you can start implementing in your organization as soon as they're designed. So in terms of participant expectations, while we are selecting the organizations, part of our decision-making practices is based off who is being identified to participate in the cohort. So at minimum, a main participant or leader is required to be identified to take part in the storytelling trainings. So this is a required portion. This main participant or leader needs to be a part-time or full-time staff member within your organization. Their primary job responsibilities must include marketing and communication deliverables, or that they have a key role in creating the stories and delivering those storytelling deliverables. They must be able to attend all classes and complete a post-survey in order for that organization to receive the $1,500 micro grant at the end. So in totality, that engagement is 8 courses that are approximately 2 hours each. They are in person, being hosted here at the IEHP Foundation headquarters in Rancho Cucamonga. It must be the same person for all classes, so we are tracking attendance by this individual. And then there will be optional coaching sessions. So there will be opportunities for one-on-one sessions with Kristen. Those are not a requirement of attendance or engagement, but it's an additional value add. You'll also see in the application an opportunity to select an additional participant. This is completely optional. It will have no bearing on whether your organization will be selected or not. What this is an opportunity for is for your organization to include an additional team member to benefit your organization and that individual. So this could be anyone that supports your organization. It could be an executive leader, a board member, a development staff member, another member of the marketing team. And this option was created in response to some of our other grant opportunities and our partner feedback that lifted up the need for more opportunities for cross-collaboration within their organization. We just got done hosting a fundraising cohort, similar type structure, and one of the feedback was lifted up was that they asked if as an option, they could include a second team member to help create an opportunity to advocate for different practices and processes within their organization and to bounce ideas off of within the cohort. So again, for participant expectations, the main participant leader is a requirement. The additional participant is truly optional, and we only want your organization to identify someone if it will be of benefit to that individual and your organization. There's also some very modest funding with this grant opportunity. So for those that complete the trainings and the post survey, which is a very small survey, that organization will receive a $1,500 micro grant after the class is finished. And this micro grant is intended to be flexible funding that can allow organizations to implement their learnings from the courses. So those potential uses could be, you may need additional equipment like an SLR camera or a lapel mic to capture stories. Your organization may want to offer compensation for specific storytellers. That's the intention of the funding, and that's where the rationale for some of that funding came. Just to be clear, there is only one grant amount per participating organization, regardless of the number of participants selected. And just as added value, this training is estimated at an in-kind value of approximately $2,500 per person. Just highlighting some key dates and deliverables. These are all listed in the request for applications, but as part of the pre-selection process, our application opened back at the end of September. You're here joining us today for the virtual information session. The recording of the information session will be available on the website at the beginning of next week at the latest. Applications are due no later than 5 p.m. Pacific time on November 3rd. That's going to be a very strict deadline. And then by December 8th, you'll be notified of the final selection status by email no later than 5 p.m. Pacific time. If you are selected to participate in the cohort, some key dates from January to April is when the classes will be taking place. They'll be taking place once a week, every other week through those months. And we had the class schedule included in the RFA with more information on what topics will be covered, as well as the specific dates and times for each of those classes. We'll have a first post survey due at the end of class. The grant payments will be remitted at the beginning of May, and then we'll have a second post survey sent out, just capturing additional midterm outcomes and impact of this grant opportunity in August. So going over a couple eligibility requirements of the organizations to be selected. So first level of eligibility criteria is at that organization level. The organization, and I have some additional slides, so this is just a catch-all for all those requirements, needs to be a public 501c3 nonprofit. been in operations for no less than 3 years, so that's 2022 to today, have an annual operating budget over $200,000 for the past 3 years. They must either be headquartered or have a significant presence. So they're serving a fairly large reach in Riverside and/or San Bernardino County. The organization must serve Inland Empire children, youth, or families from at least one of our priority populations listed there on the screen. And an organization can either provide direct supports, lead collective action, or engage in advocacy efforts focused on at least one of IHP's priority vital action areas. So your organization does not have to be a direct service provider. They can be an indirect service provider or lead a collective, as long as they align with one of the vital condition action areas. And then the organization also has to have a 2025 Candid GuideStar seal of transparency that is gold or platinum. So double clicking into each of those eligibility requirements in terms of the public 501c3 nonprofit status, your organization, to qualify for this, must have their own EIN number. We are not accepting fiscally sponsored organizations for this opportunity. Your organization must be in good standing with the IRS and not be delinquent on any tax filings. And then for this opportunity, your organization cannot be a private non-operating foundation, nor can it be a 501c4 organization. Your organization must have also been officially recognized for 3 or more years. And so that means that you've been given your tax exempt status as a nonprofit by California and/or the federal government. If your organization was fiscally sponsored for 3 or more years, and you now have your own EIN number, and so you don't meet that official recognition criteria of 3 years, you may be considered for this grant. But before applying, please reach out to grants@ihpfoundation.org, explain your situation, and we'll respond letting you know if we can make an exception or a one-off to this official recognition criteria. So again, if you're kind of in that mid zone, let us know and we'll have that conversation. In terms of the annual operating budget, the organization's annual operating budget for the past 3 years, as I shared before, must be greater than $300,000 and that past 3 years includes 2022 to today. We define our annual operating budgets as anything inclusive of anticipated revenue and expenses for the organization. And similar to the 501c3 status, organizations that have had an operating budget that exceeds $300,000 for more than 1 year, but doesn't meet that 3-year threshold may be considered. So not a guarantee, but we realize that there's unique situations. So again, just email us explaining the situation and we can have that conversation for consideration. Double clicking into populations served. So as I shared earlier, organizations do not need to be headquartered in the Inland Empire for this opportunity, but they do need to demonstrate a significant presence in Riverside or San Bernardino counties. As I shared earlier, the organizations can be a direct or indirect service provider, or they can promote collective advocacy. Organizations must serve Inland Empire families with children, youth, or the family at whole from at least one of the priority populations. So the organization doesn't have to address every single one of these, but they must serve at least one. And that's low-income households or those living in poverty, rural or remote communities, and communities that are experiencing the poorest health outcomes. And so we use the Healthy Places Index or HPI score to determine this. And so we consider any community that is within the 25th percentile, so an HPI score lower than 25, as being qualified as a community experiencing the poorest health outcomes. And so if you have any questions about that, please reach out and let us know. In terms of also aligning with our vital condition action areas, we have 3 main categories. And so we use the vital conditions measures for health and well-being as a way to organize social drivers of health. So for some of you, this may look very familiar. To others, this may be a new opportunity to learn about a different framework. But within the 7 vital conditions, we focus on 3. One is basic needs for health and safety. And within that, we're focusing on supporting organizations that increase access to healthy food and nutrition services, focus on reducing unhealthy behaviors and addictions, support access to physical health services and access to mental health services, and then under meaningful work and wealth, so that workforce development piece, we are focusing on supporting organizations that help create access to education programs and career pathways for the healthcare workforce and the social service workforce. So not the entire workforce, but we are focusing on helping organizations expand capacity, diversity, and access to training programs specifically for the healthcare workforce and the social service workforce. And then for humane housing, we support across the spectrum of housing. So access to safe living conditions for unhoused families, access to affordable housing for housing insecure, and also supporting organizations that help community members gain access to home ownership. Leaning into our Candid GuideStar Seal of Transparency. So for this opportunity, organizations must have a 2025 Candid GuideStar Seal of Transparency of either gold or platinum. And the reason that we ask for this is we are looking to leverage the information that's collected in Candid to check the financial stability and a little bit more about the demographics, programs, and services of your organization. So instead of asking every organization for a copy of their budget, a copy of their board every time they submit a grant application, this allows us to pull that information in and ultimately help streamline the application process. Organizations, if you don't have this seal, can be obtained by updating their Candid profile with demographic and financial information. And updates can be completed in one day. It can be a fairly quick process. The caveat to that is if your organization has not claimed or verified their profile, I would plan for about 5 business days for your organization's account to be verified. So definitely, if you don't have the gold or platinum, make sure you start this process early to make sure that you have that completed by that November 3rd deadline. Another key piece to lift up too, this is something that does need to be updated every year. So make sure that your organization has a 2025 Candid GuideStar Seal of Transparency. Good practice to add it to your calendar. We've had some folks in the past not realize the year. And so just paying particular attention to that. And so again, as I called out, Candid GuideStar is to be updated on an annual basis. We've included a link to resources for how to update your profile. But if you do have any questions, we do have assistance from our team available upon request. Just do ask. The more advanced notice, the better, because with that, we could take up to 3 business days to respond, and then with the additional up to 5 business days to update. So just plan accordingly. And I just included a picture here of our Candid profile status to let you know that the foundation, we're not going to ask anything of a partner that we're not willing to do ourselves. So we've added it to our process in terms of transparency to make sure that we are keeping our Candid GuideStar profile updated on an annual basis. And so going into the evaluation of the applications, and so I've actually included here the 4 categories that we are evaluating the applications on and the sub-measures for each of those. And so just know as we go throughout this, a couple of different things. One, while we do include these as criteria of evaluation, our evaluation process is not an exact science. So we take into account how the application scores in these different categories, and we also take into account the need to have diversity and a range of representation in the cohort. So there's a couple of different environments that we're operating this evaluation criteria in. We call our evaluation acronym ARC, and you'll see what each of those letters stands for. So the A in ARC stands for accountability. So throughout all of our grant opportunities, we're wanting to make sure that our partners are displaying accountability to funders and the community by being operationally efficient through healthy finances and strong leadership. So you can see on the right-hand side how we're measuring that for this opportunity or evaluating that is 1, we are looking at the executive leadership and board engagement. And primarily for this opportunity, we don't expect you to come in having everything figured out. This is an opportunity to build capacity and to grow. And so really, when we're looking at the applications, we're making sure that the organization or the participant has demonstrated an understanding of how their executive leadership and board is currently engaged, and that there's an articulation of how this specific opportunity can improve or expand their engagement. And when you go through the application, you'll start to see how certain questions align back to these evaluation criteria. 1.2, we're looking at the impact of the training in terms of how it's going to build capacity for the organization. So again, we're not looking at an organization having everything figured out for storytelling, but that the organization has articulated clearly how this training program will help to address or mitigate a current storytelling, fundraising, or advocacy challenge. We're also looking at the individual level. So how will this training help the individual participant grow? And so you can see that here, how will they grow as an individual, and also in how will this training help them support their organization in improving either the reach or the effectiveness of their storytelling efforts. And then we also have a criteria line item in there to measure advocacy willingness. So your organization demonstrates a willingness to consider advocacy work in their future state. So if your organization is already leaning into advocacy work and you're looking to continue that advocacy work in 2026 and beyond, that's great, or expand it, that's awesome. If your organization hasn't tapped into the advocacy space, that's okay. We're looking at if the organization is willing to consider that advocacy work in 2026. For the R, we're looking at organizations that are results oriented. And so those are organizations by striving to achieve results that are identifiable, measurable, and demonstrate progress to inform data-driven decisions. So for this particular one, we're looking at the potential of the organization. So we're looking at those growing organizations. Again, if you're an organization that has everything figured out with storytelling, this is probably not the best opportunity for you. We're really looking at growing the capacity of organizations. And so for this one, we're looking at has the organization articulated their storytelling process and the opportunity for improvement? Where the candidate can come into play, more of our standard things across any of our grant opportunities. What's the organization history and organization budget? Does the organization appear sustainable and able to grow or maintain depth and quality? Is there a commitment to success in the Inland Empire? So that participant articulates that they are committed to being fully engaged, and that participant demonstrates either work or lived experience, or a combination of both, that demonstrates a commitment to the Inland Empire. We want to make sure that we're helping to grow the capacity here in our region, and we honor both work and lived experience. And then we also have in here application completeness. So did the responses demonstrate thoughtfulness and adhere to the directions presented? For the C within ARC of evaluation, we look at connectedness to community and networks with other organizations. Partnership is really important to us, and so this is where we look and lean into that principle for us. So we're going to look into community need and reach. So does the organization articulate a history of programs and services that address a community need and have a decent size reach within key communities? So there's no magic number of reach of services, but we do take that number into account holistically. Is there partnership and network engagement? Do they lift up other partners, networks, collaboratives, or coalitions in their work? And this is here, connectedness. We do have a question in there that asks if the organization has attended the Vibrant Health Forum or reviewed the recording in the materials. And the reason we include that line item in here is, as we mentioned, this was a response to a Vibrant Health Forum, and that Vibrant Health Forum or the materials included from that forum do help paint the larger picture of some topics and some foundations that will be covered in this training cohort. So we just want to make sure through that as much as possible, we're supporting and we're acknowledging those that have done the extra research to make sure that the understanding of the purpose and the objectives of the cohort are there. Our last H, these are same throughout any of our grant opportunities, is health outcomes. So we're looking at organizations' positions to be trusted messengers of health in our priority populations. both in vital condition action areas and priority populations. And so again, these are standard ones, just making sure that it's a match of who your organization focuses on serving, what types of programs and services your organization offers, and are those in alignment with IEHP Foundation's mission, vision, values, and priority populations. So you can see each of these here. One, does the organization's missions, programs, and services align with our vital conditions action areas? Does their alignment with priority population as identified in 4.2? And are the organization's program and services positioning that organization to be trusted messengers of health in a sustainable way? So that really covers the main nuts and bolts of this grant opportunity, what the objectives are, the timelines were, how we're evaluating these applications. Switching gears, we're going to talk a little bit about the technicalities of the grant application itself. And in particular, we're going to go over high level how to navigate our grants management portal. So for some of you that have submitted an IEHP Foundation grant before, this is going to look very familiar. It might be a little repetitive for those that have not navigated our grants management portal before. Hopefully this will be helpful. I do just want to share out that our grants management portal, we use Foundant GLM, has recently done a little bit of an interface update. So if you haven't logged in a while, things may look a little bit different, but all of the information is there. So if you have any questions, you want a deeper dive into support. Again, as I mentioned, we use Foundant Grants Lifecycle Manager as our grants portal. That company offers a great support hub full of a library of tutorials. So there's a link here. And there's also links throughout the grant application as well to particular articles or videos that may be helpful at that particular point in the application. If you do decide to go on the Foundant library of resources, when you are looking up articles of support, it is recommended to use the word applicant in the keywords section. So if you're looking up, how to add a collaborator, you can put how to add a collaborator applicant, because as a grant manager on this side of the house, we use the same library of resources. So that applicant will help you navigate that library of resources. And again, as I lifted up before, specific helpful tutorials will be linked throughout the application process. So how do you access our grants management portal? You can bookmark the direct login, but perhaps the easier way to remember is to go to our website. And there's an orange grantee portal button at the upper right-hand corner. You can click that and you will be directed straight into the login page. Also under our grants tab, there's different links that will also link you back to that login page. But if you're operating it fresh, just go to our website, grantee portal. What do you need if you're a first-time applicant for one of our foundation grants? Each organization will need to have a profile created in the grants management portal. If another funder for your organization uses Foundant GLM, so there's a couple of others in the region, IECF being one of them, I believe RAP Foundation as well, a distinct profile will need to be created in our grant management portal. So our grants management portal may look very similar, but you do need a distinct login for ours. So profiles are not shared between funders. If your organization's already received funding from IEHP Foundation before, or if you've applied for a grant from us before, your organization already has a profile. Please do not create a new profile. If you need support on accessing that profile or updating that profile, please email me. I can help support with that. And if you do happen to create a new organizational profile, you'll probably be hearing from me to talk about how we can combine the information. Each organization should only submit one application for this opportunity. So you really encourage cross-collaboration and communication among your team so that organizations are not submitting more than one application. Because if an organization submits more than one application, we will not consider that organization for this opportunity. And information that's collected for the organization profile, fairly minimal. You just need your name of your organization, your EIN, address, website, phone number, email address, primary contact, which we'll go over in just a second, mission statement, subregion served, and vital conditions address. And for each of these are drop-down selections. Each organization will also need at least one individual profile created tied to that organization. So if you're the one for your organization submitting the application, that will probably be your profile. Each individual should have their own unique user profile. Cannot recommend it enough that users do not share logins. And the reason for that is if your organization is selected, we do have different forms in there that require signing privileges. And so if someone's logging in with someone else's information, we can't track back who signed it. Individuals or grant writers that represent multiple organizations applying for this grant opportunity or for IEHP Foundation can have one login and can access multiple organizations at once. There's a great article within the Foundant Library of Resources that explains that more. The applicant for the grant will be our main point of contact for the grant updates. And primary contacts will be copied on the email communications. So the applicant and the primary contact may be the same individual. They may not be the same individual. So the applicant may be your grant writer and the primary contact may be your executive leadership. That's typically how organizations have structured it in the past. That primary contact is the executive leader within their organization that they want included in all communications. The applicant for the grant does not need to be one of the participants identified to take place in the cohort. It can be a grant writer that's not taking place in it. Any individual contact information that needs to be set up in the account, this is the minimum information that's needed. You can also choose to have multiple individuals working on the grant application, and we'll cover that in just a second. So as I shared before, each organization will need one primary contact identified. This primary contact needs to have signing rights for the organization. So they will need a login to the grants management portal at some point. Once, if your organization is selected, there is a grant agreement that would need to be signed. And as I shared before, multiple individuals can be assigned and invited to work on the application. In the grants management portal, they refer to this as collaborators. There's a great tutorial in there. A couple of things that I want to lift up that's not included in that Foundant tutorial is while you can share the application and work on, and multiple individuals can work on the application, they cannot work on the application at the same time and expect that both their responses save. So if I'm logged in and my colleague Deanna is logged in, if I press save and then she presses save, whatever is on her screen at that moment will save and override any information that I submitted. So that communication between team members is going to be really important. So that collaboration can come in handy when you're working on questions asynchronously. So again, that live updating the application at the same time is not a feature yet available in Foundant. Crossing our fingers that hopefully it will be soon. And as I lifted up, communication between your staff is super important. On our end of the house, we cannot access any prior versions of the application. So once that new version is saved on there, that is the only version that we will be able to access and we cannot recover. So I included a screenshot here how you can invite another user, but I would double click into that Foundant library resource with more information. So high level, the different application sections that are within this application, we've tried to do as our best as possible to create a fairly streamlined application, really collecting the main information that we need. So I will promise you, if you've submitted the information, we will read it. So the first section of the application is a general instruction section. Really make sure you start here and read this section thoroughly. It calls on some key information on how you know if you've submitted the application, some helpful articles with direct links to those articles, and just a recap of deadlines and key considerations for this opportunity. The next section of the application is organization information. So this is your general demographic information for the organization. There could be questions on there that you can copy over from Candid. When you read through the general instructions, there's some information on there. So this organization information section should be able to be filled out fairly quickly. It's mostly multiple choice or multi-select questions. There's 4 narrative questions in there that capture programs and services, challenge your organization is facing, so on and so forth. And you'll note the little asterisk on the screen. Narrative questions are 1,500 characters maximum, inclusive of spaces. And so just being mindful of that character count and how spaces take into that. So not too much space, but enough to hopefully help you explain and address the question. Then the main participant information will capture information about that main participant or leader you want participating in this cohort. So this will include contact information. We will ask for a resume to be submitted. We don't have a template or a specific format that you need to update that resume in, but it cannot exceed more than 2 pages. There's a total of 3 narrative questions in this section. And really, these narrative questions are focusing on having the main participant explain how the training will help them grow in their professional capacity. And again, just to reiterate, this main participant, a significant portion of their job responsibilities must involve storytelling, marketing, and communications. And you'll definitely see how that plays out in the questions asked. And then if your organization selects yes, that you want to identify an additional participant for the cohort, an additional participant information section will drop down. This section will not appear unless that question at the end of the previous section is marked yes, that you want an additional participant. So if you want to toggle on the questions that question yes and no to see what those questions are, you can always do that and then go back and update accordingly. Again, this is not a requirement of the grant. Similar questions will be answered in terms of collecting contact information and a resume, but this section only includes 2 narrative questions, and again, focusing on how the training will help this individual grow in their professional capacity. You'll see a lot of that focus is around advocacy and fundraising. And then there's an additional information section. This is an optional section that only contains 1 narrative question, and it's really a catch-all. So if you think that there's something that we should know either about the participant or participants identified for this opportunity or your organization, this is your spot to include that. It's not a requirement, but we realize every organization has unique challenges, histories, things like that. So we wanted to offer a space if the organization has additional information that they would like to share. Then there's also the last section is another optional section. Highly encourage you to fill it out because it helps us learn how to improve the application process in the future and make sure that we are delivering on our goal of having streamlined applications. So this last section focuses on process feedback. So it asks questions like how long, it's only a couple questions. How long did it take you to complete the application? How would you improve it? And maybe one other about the process overall. So 6 sections in total, really 2 that are absolutely mandatory, 3 if you are selecting the additional participant. And then closing out the presentation here, just a couple of key important notes to lift up. Cannot stress this enough, apply early. Make sure that you're allowing for sufficient response time for any questions, updates to Candid, or technology concerns. Late applications will not be accepted. So the earlier you can start, definitely encourage that. Status updates. Any email communications regarding the status of your application will come via this email address, administrator@grantinterface.com. Because we do send emails out regarding grant status from the grants portal. You can also view your application status by logging into the grants management portal. And there's some articles on the Foundant Library on how to navigate that process. But just to make sure that this email doesn't go to spam, make sure that that email is marked safe in your inbox. If there's additional questions, there's some times where we may have just a clarifying questions that we need to have addressed. You may also be getting an email from grants@IEHPfoundation.org, but that formal final status notice is going to be coming from the administrator at grantinterface.com. A successful submission. So an application is only considered successfully submitted if you receive a confirmation email. I've had situations in the past where an organization fills out the draft application and hits save, but forgets to hit submit. So if you don't receive a confirmation email, go back in and double check that that was not the situation for you. And if you have any sort of issues or you just want to double check that that went through, please email me and I'm happy to confirm if that's the case. I also want to emphasize to follow instructions, read all instructions carefully and thoroughly. Definitely don't want the instructions to be the reason that your evaluation of your application is not scored as high. So please follow the instructions. If you have clarifying questions on the instructions, I'm happy to answer those. Also want to say reach out. Realizing that organizations have unique or nuanced experiences, let's start that conversation. If you have questions, if you qualify, if you have questions on a particular participant you want to lift up, start that conversation with us. Email grants@ihpfoundation.org. I do just ask, anticipate up to 3 business days for a response. Again, we try to stay within that 24-hour mark, but there are some times where that may extend to 3 business days. With that reach out too, if you have a particular question or you want to go over 1 or 2 of your responses, I'm also happy to make myself available to have that conversation as well. But again, the more advanced notice, the better. And then really big, cannot emphasize this enough, we just ask all our partners when they're submitting their applications to be honest. We really value honesty and transparency. This opportunity is intended to be responsive to the opportunities and challenges facing the Inland Empire nonprofits, and it's an opportunity to build capacity of your organization. So as I've mentioned throughout the presentation, we don't anticipate that your organization has everything figured out with storytelling, advocacy, or fundraising. We want this to be an opportunity for growth and an opportunity to grow together. So just in the same way that we're asking you to be honest, you can always anticipate the IEHP Foundation staff to be honest in return. So this is I don't think I lifted up, but this is our inaugural cohort for a storytelling cohort. So we are going to be learning with you. So we're going to be asking for feedback along the way. How can we improve future iterations of this opportunity? So please be honest, not only in the grant application process, but in any of your communications with the foundation. We truly value your honesty and want to grow from it. And so on that note, that is all for the presentation. Again, an email will be sent out within the next 3 business days with a copy of these slides, a link to the recording, as well as some high-level Q&A questions and answers that were asked. And I am going to double check. We have a couple minutes here. I'm going to check to see if there was any high-level questions or any frequently asked questions that I can lift up on this call. Awesome. So I do see a question in the Q&A that does ask, can the main participant and the additional participants switch off attending the sessions in person? So that's a great question. And I do just want to emphasize that whoever the main participant is, they need to be present at all classes in person. So that attendance has to be the same person, and we're tracking attendance with that main participant. The additional participant, if they're scheduled as much as possible, we'd love for them to attend all of the class sessions. But if their schedule doesn't allow for that, they can miss a few classes. But that main participant must be the same person for every single class. And we do aim to have that main participant be engaged fully in those sessions. The class sessions will be taking place in person and they will not be recorded, and the material builds off each other. So that in-person consistent attendance is going to be really important for engagement and learning. Let me see if there is any other main questions. If not, looks like we are ending this early. Again, you'll get a copy of these slides. If you do have any questions, comments, feedback, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at grants@ihpfoundation.org. Appreciate you all for joining us today and look forward to seeing your applications. Thank you.